There is a particular kind of person who finds themselves here. Not someone passing through casually. Someone who has been carrying something for a long time. Maybe not something that looks dramatic from the outside. Maybe just the quiet, sustained weight of trying and hoping and adjusting and trying again, without the breakthrough ever arriving in quite the form, or at quite the moment that felt like it should have come by now. And somewhere inside that long, sustained effort, there have been moments where you wondered whether the waiting was ever going to end, whether what you have been holding on to was actually going to show up, whether you might be the kind of person the good things simply kept passing by. I want to start there, right in that honest, uncomfortable place, because the most important thing right now is not to skip past the weight of what the waiting has actually cost. It has cost something, and before anything else is said about what is coming, that cost deserves to be acknowledged. You are still here after all of it. That is not nothing. That is actually everything. What most people who have not been through a long season of waiting do not understand is what real waiting actually requires. They imagine it as passive, sitting still while time moves. But waiting in the real sense is one of the most active things a human being can do. It requires you to make a choice every single day to keep believing in something that has not yet offered enough evidence to justify the belief. That choice, repeated across days and weeks and months, is genuinely demanding. Because belief without evidence is not comfortable or peaceful. It is a daily negotiation with doubt, a daily decision to say not yet instead of never. And the world does not make that easy. The world is consistently better at showing you what has not arrived than what is on its way. Every time you look around at what is still missing, at what other people seem to have that you are still reaching for, you receive a quiet invitation to let go, to accept a smaller version of what you actually want, to be reasonable, to stop wanting something so intensely when the wanting seems to produce nothing but more wanting. You did not let go. You adjusted, refined, had moments of exhaustion where you loosened your grip. But you came back. Every time. And each time you came back, that was a vote. A vote for your own vision. For the version of your life you knew was possible, even when nothing around you was confirming it. Those votes have been accumulating in a way that is not yet visible in your circumstances, but has been building something inside you that is about to matter enormously. One of the most misunderstood things about how good things actually arrive is this. They almost never look the way you imagined them when you were first doing the imagining. The gap between what you pictured and what actually shows up is the reason so many people miss what is coming for them even when it is right in front of them. We build very specific pictures of what the arrival is supposed to look like, how it is supposed to feel, how we will know it has come. And those pictures, entirely human and understandable, create a kind of tunnel vision. The relationship arrives, but not with the person you imagined. The financial shift comes through a channel you would never have predicted. The creative breakthrough appears in a direction that feels sideways from where you were pointing. The clarity comes quietly instead of in the dramatic moment of revelation you had been waiting for. If you are too attached to the specific picture, you can walk right past the actual thing looking for the version that only ever existed in your imagination. So part of what matters right now is staying open, not just to the arrival but to the form the arrival takes. Something beautiful is genuinely coming. But beautiful does not always announce itself in the way you prepared for. Sometimes it arrives sideways. Sometimes in clothes you do not immediately recognize as the thing you have been waiting for. The openness to receive it in whatever form it actually takes is itself part of the final preparation. There is a question that lives inside everyone who has been through a long season of waiting. Most people are too afraid to ask it out loud, but I want to name it because naming it is part of releasing it. The question is, what if I waited for nothing? What if all of this patience, all of this faith, all of this choosing every single day to believe again, what if it did not mean anything? What if the thing I held on to never comes, and I wasted the best years of my life in a waiting that was never going to end the way I needed it to? That question deserves a real answer, rather than a spiritual bypass. Even if the specific thing you have been waiting for arrives in a completely different form than you imagined, the person you became while waiting is real. The depth you developed is real. The faith that was forged across those difficult days is real. None of it disappears if the timeline looks different than expected. But here is what actually seems true about desire that survives years of doubt and difficulty and disappointment and still will not leave you alone. That kind of persistence is not random. The things that simply will not let go of you no matter how many times you try to be reasonable about them are pointing toward something. Not as a guarantee, but as a signal. And signals that have lasted this long are worth continuing to follow. If this work is reaching you in a real moment, there is a place in the description where you can support it. Not because anything is required, but because people who have believed in this and given toward it freely are what make it possible to keep reaching others in exactly this kind of season. Something important happened during the waiting that most people do not notice because they were inside it. The waiting was not a void between where you were and where you wanted to be. It was not empty time. Things were happening in it constantly, just not in ways that were visible or measurable from inside the experience. You were changing. The way a bone heals, you cannot feel it knitting back together, cannot observe the process. But one day you put weight on it, and it holds in a way it could not before. And you realize the healing was happening the whole time you were convinced nothing was happening. The waiting has been doing that to you. Healing things, clarifying things, removing things that needed to go before the right things could arrive. Building in you a quality of patience that is different from the patience of someone who has not yet been genuinely tested. Your patience now has weight and authority to it. It was forged through repeated choosing rather than simply inherited. And that specific quality, patient faith built through difficulty rather than assumed in its absence, is exactly what is coming needs you to have in order to sustain it when it arrives. Some things cannot be entrusted to someone who has not yet proven to themselves that they will not fold when it gets hard. You have proven that. Through the very season you would have skipped if you could have. And the proving is precisely why what is coming can now come. The path is going to make sense. I want to say this carefully because it gets said cheaply sometimes, in ways that skip past real pain rather than acknowledging it. What I mean is something more specific than the usual formulation. The things that felt like they were working against you were often working on you, preparing you, stripping away what was not actually aligned, redirecting you towards something truer. Not because the hard things were good in themselves, but because you are the kind of person who takes what happens and uses it, who does not let difficulty have the final word, who finds something in the hardest seasons that gets carried forward as wisdom. When you look back from where you are moving toward, even if you cannot see it clearly yet, the path will carry a coherence it cannot have from inside it, not a neat explanation that removes the pain from the memory. A deeper sense of how one thing led to another, how the very things you would have gladly skipped were the things that built the most essential parts of what you are becoming. That understanding is coming. It arrives on its own when you get far enough along to look back with enough distance. And you are getting there, further along than today probably feels. There is something practical worth naming for the actual days ahead. The most important shift available to you right now is to stop carrying yourself like someone who is still waiting. Because the way you move through the world when you believe you are still waiting is different from the way you move when you understand that the shift has already begun. The shift has already begun. Maybe not visibly yet, maybe not in ways that the people around you can observe, but underneath the surface things are moving. The alignment is happening. The pieces are finding their places. And your role in that is not to white-knuckle through more waiting. It is to begin living, in whatever small ways are currently available, as the person you are becoming rather than as the person you have been while waiting. Not as performance, not as pretending something is true before it is true, but as a genuine internal shift in how you relate to your own life, in the choices you make, in what you say yes to, in how much space you give the doubt versus how much space you give the direction you already know. Where you put your attention right now matters. The story you tell yourself about where you are in the process matters. And the story available to you today is not the story of someone still suspended indefinitely in waiting. It is the story of someone who held on long enough, did the work that was asked of them, and is now entering the season where what was built in quiet begins to become visible. That story is not fiction. It is the most accurate description of where you actually are. The link in the pinned comment is there for anyone who wants to support this work. Given freely, genuinely, because it resonated, that is the only spirit it was meant to receive. Something beautiful is on its way to you, not as a reward dispensed by something that has been evaluating your worthiness, not as compensation for difficulty, as the natural unfolding of everything you have been building and becoming through this entire season. The seed planted in faith when there was no evidence is moving toward the surface. The foundation laid in quiet when nobody was watching is about to have something real built on it. The person shaped through every hard moment and every choice to keep going is about to step into a season where the shaping starts to show. Hold on. Not desperately, not with white knuckles, but with the quiet, grounded grip of someone who knows that what they have been holding was always worth holding. With the patience of someone who is no longer wondering if the thing is real, who knows it is real and is simply allowing it the final moments it needs to fully arrive. You waited long enough. You held on through enough. You believed through enough. Something beautiful is coming to meet you. And when it arrives, everything that could not make sense from inside the waiting is going to reveal itself as exactly what it was. Not random difficulty, not time wasted, but the specific and necessary path to exactly this moment and to everything that follows it.